join you today from Mill Bay, just northern Victoria, and it's with gratitude that I'm here spending this afternoon or this lunch break with you. I will ask you to share on the chat box where are you joining us today from, and maybe how is the weather looking like. In Victoria, we always like to talk about how nice and warm is the weather during the winter. So today's a little bit cloudy, but still maybe warmer than many other places across Canada. This session is going to be recorded, and we will be sharing the recording link by email with everyone who registered. We ask you to keep your microphones muted, but through today's session. However, we invite you to participate with us, connecting you during the session in the chat, or also using the reactions function. Just going to hit recording. At Royal Roads University, before every session, we would like to acknowledge that we are located in the land of the ancestors and the families of the Lekwungen and the Quetzalcoatl people. And it's with gratitude where the present, the past, and the future come together, where Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, students, faculty, and staff come together to build the future of Royal Roads and our community. So hi everyone, and thank you for those that are sharing some information in the chat box. We have Lindsay coming from Saanich, we have Olivia in Delta BC, so welcome everyone. So today, as I said, my name is Andrea Torres, I'm Student Recruitment Manager, and I'm going to be co-hosting this session with Dr. Robin Cox. Dr. Robin Cox is the program head of the graduate programs in climate action leadership, as well as a professor in our Master of Arts and Graduate Diploma in the Disaster and Emergency Management. Robin is also the director of the Resilience by Design Research Innovation Lab. So hello, Robin, and thank you so much for being here. You will hear more from Robin in a little bit. So the agenda for today, there's two more people that I haven't introduced, and they're very key people for our team. So we have Nancy, she's an education specialist, and she's going to be our tech support. So if you have any challenges, please feel free to connect with Nancy. And if you want to learn more about the program, we also have Lisa Murray. Lisa is joining us from Saanich as well, and she is going to be helping us with some links and some information on the chat box. So now you know who are here today to support you during this webinar. The agenda for today, I'm going to talk really briefly about Royal Roads University experience, and then Robin is going to talk about the program-specific information, and at the end, I'm going to talk about the application process and the requirements for this program. And as I said before, we welcome any questions through the presentation on the chat box. So Royal Roads University, what makes us differently? Why we are so proud of how we do things? So Royal Roads, the first thing is we see life as part of your education. So we see during the program, when you become a student, that our students are a combination of academic and work experience. A lot of people might come into our program through something that we call flexible admissions, and I'm going to expand a little more at the end. But at the end, what I want to say is that we value who you are, and all of us, through our experience in the workplace and life, we are bringing something new and exciting and challenging at the same time within the program. And that will bring me to what is the cohort model and that learning community that you are going to be supported by. So it's going to be very common that you are going to be building those relations with your classmates and also with your faculty. Your faculty, just heads up, they are going to know you by your name. As I said, for us, building that community is very important, and it was better to know each other by name. So if you're someone that might be a little bit shy and tend to hide in the back of the classroom, this might be an opportunity for you to engage differently with your classmates and faculty. And as when you are building that relationships through the cohort model, you are going to be building those connections for life. The last thing that I want to share with you is that our faculty, and you are going to hear a little more about Robin and how she has been developing this program, but your faculty are coming to teach you during this program with that academic background for sure, and that we find is very important and relevant, but also they are going to help you to understand how to put those academic learnings back into the workplace. So you are going to see a lot of interaction of hands-on learning and academic learning. And I want to share that Royal Roads University is a Changemaker campus. And that what means is that we are developing and inspiring leadership at all the levels, from an individual and at the organization. We want to make and create programs that are relevant, innovative, and transformative learning for those that are wishing to apply skills and also to lead in a dynamic and very complex and changing context. And of course, our communities are changing rapidly more than ever these days. And I want to take you through a little, show you a little bit of our campus. So you can see 4 pictures here. We have our Halley Castle, our beautiful forest, and our Squimble Lagoon. Part of our learning is the context of where you are located, understanding how that learning happens in our community, happens in our campus, and of course, happen in that online learning experience that we had for the last 25 years. Through that learning community, you are going to be learning more about who you are, learning about new concepts, but also at the end is how you can challenge yourself. So that is the power of place. And with that, I would like to pass over to Robin, who is going to walk us through the program specific information.
Thanks, Andrea, and welcome everybody. Glad that you've arrived here today. We'll go to the next slide. The McCall program, the MA in Climate Action Leadership and the diploma really arose within the midst of the climate crisis, and with this very clear purpose and very clear need to address a gap in leadership. And when we talk about leadership, we're not talking only about government leaders, but leaders in every sector, in every organization, in every community, and households. And this idea that we really need to be contributing to solutions to climate resilience across society. This is not only an environmental issue, this is an issue that is infused with the equity issues that we know, inequity issues that exist. It's infused with the way we do business and how we need to change that. So the program is really focused on blending climate science with a social science orientation, leadership, competencies in communication, in risk assessment and management, competencies and skills that will really help you take action in your own sector or in your own organization and in your own community. And as Andrea has already said, to really be a change maker. Next slide. So when we think about climate action and this idea of resilience, and there's lots of different ways of understanding that, but we're really looking at this constellation of climate change and climate adaptation, sustainable development and the sustainable development goals, which cut across all kinds of areas, and disaster risk reduction. So climate action really is at the heart of that. And it's really about reducing our vulnerability and the risks that we face with climate, the risks that are already locked in and that will continue to be amplifying and growing. And for those of you who live in British Columbia, you've already experienced those, and lived in other parts of Canada and the world, you're experiencing them. And those are going to get worse over time, but also creating the solutions to address those risks and to work towards a net positive future where we're not so reliant on carbon and where we've reduced greenhouse gas emissions to slow climate warming down. Next slide. Students always ask, and it's a fair ask, because if you're investing in an education, part of the reason most students invest in an education is around employment. We've seen a real explosion of growth in jobs looking for people with understanding and experience in climate related work. The race to net zero, the race to resilience, those are UN defined campaigns where we're really globally searching, sorry, I'm just gonna toss my phone so I don't hear it buzzing. We're really looking at working towards a greener future, a more resilient future, a more equitable future. Climate mitigation is really focused on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, stimulating the development of new green products and new energy sources, etc. Climate adaptation, as I said earlier, is really focused on reducing the risks, planning and preparing for those risks and impacts, and really innovating solutions for communities and organizations and businesses so that we can move into resilience in the context of climate change and the many other complex challenges that we're facing that intersect with climate change. So this is really a growth area in terms of job prospects, and it's growing in all sectors. We work with engineers, we work with planners, we work with people working in retail, in tourism, in government as policy analysts. So it's a very broad field. Next slide. The program, the MA in Climate Action Leadership, is described as a blended program. Obviously, during the COVID context, that has been changed and we've been fully online. And that will extend a little bit. But the goal with the program is, as with all our programs at Royal Roads, is to offer dynamic online learning. Some of you will have been engaged in online learning during COVID. I will say many of you might have been engaged in really bad online learning because of the quick pivot that many universities had to do. Royal Roads has been delivering online learning for over 25 years. And we are very good at building community, building opportunities for applied practice through our online learning, for engaging, and we obviously use Zoom and other tools within our work. The McCall program, you can expect, as with most programs at Royal Roads, around 15 hours a week, sometimes more, sometimes less. Part of that depends on you as a student and the experience that you bring in, how quickly you read and understand resources, et cetera, how quickly you write, et cetera. But you can expect about 15 hours a week of work in the online space. We use Moodle, which is an online learning management system, but in this program, we also use WordPress, which some or many of you might be familiar with. And every student receives a WordPress instance or site because we're, as part of the program, doing open learning and using our websites for blogging and for sharing information as we learn, rather than waiting till the end of learning to share that. You'll get support from our various help desks and the library. Obviously, like any university, we have a robust library. In the program, there are what we call 2 learning intensives. The first one is in May, it's 10 days long, and that is a more full-time experience, whether it's on campus or online. It's an intensive. And it allows, in this case, in the first year, students to meet, to develop a sense of each other and of the faculty, and to really dive into some of the early foundational competencies that you'll need for the program and for climate action more generally, and to begin practicing some of those skills, such as design thinking. The program ends at the end of year 2, if you're doing the full degree and not just the diploma, with a 3-day conference. And the conference will be a hybrid conference, both face-to-face and online, regardless of what's happening with COVID or anything else. And it will be a conference that features the work of students, but also brings in other guest speakers and members of the community. So it will be an open conference where other people can join in the conversations and dialogues that the work that students have done and are doing can inspire. Next slide. Next slide, thank you. There's 2 pathways. I've already mentioned them a little bit, but the first one is a graduate diploma, and that's basically a year. It's 18 credits. It provides a pathway into the master's program, but it's also a credential in of itself. And if students in the diploma, and lots of students at Royal Roads in most programs, a number of students will start with a diploma sort of to test the water. It's a shorter commitment. It's a way of testing how it fits, how the program fits, how graduate education fits. And if you want to ladder into the program, you can do that as long as you maintain a B+ average. The master's is 2 and some months year degree program. The completion of the degree is in of itself, but we'll talk a little bit more about how you can augment that degree as you move through it with what we're calling a portfolio, which is very interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary. Next slide, please. So we'll just move past this into the actual meat of it. Yeah. So the master's graduate diploma and the master's program begin with this first year. And we begin with a course that's called Leading Climate Action in Society. This course is an unusual course. It houses the learning intensive, that 2-week or 10-day learning intensive, where there's a deep dive into foundational concepts and principles, lots of speakers, design thinking, sort of solution-oriented approach to climate action. And then that is followed by seminars throughout the year, again, with guest speakers and sort of this follow through, because you'll be engaged in a design challenge around climate action. That is followed by a climate science impacts and services course, which gives you a really solid foundation in understanding climate science, understanding impacts, understanding the difference between climate and weather, for example. It's not a course that will turn you into a climate scientist. It is a climate science course for social scientists, and it's a very solid course taught by a climate scientist. We also follow that by a course on communication. And the order of these courses may change in upcoming iterations, but the communications course is really about supporting this really important goal of understanding and being able to communicate about climate, understanding the role of place and local and how one integrates that into how we communicate about climate, and really how to effectively use communication, not only to communicate, but to inspire and motivate. Whoop. That's followed by a course on risk management, a course on business, and really understanding how we build a business case for climate action within organizations, institutions, and businesses. And then really a deep dive into leading change. So much of what we are going to be doing in climate action is supporting transitions in communities, transitions in businesses, transitions in government. So leading change in that context is a really important part of climate action leadership. Next slide. That is followed by year 2 if you're going on to do the Masters of Climate Action Leadership. And we'll go to the next slide, please. There are 2 streams in this second year. You still operate as a cohort because we think that the cohort model is very important, but students will all take 601, which is an equivalent of the 501, the Leading Climate Action. And again, there will be seminars, and this will culminate in the conference. You'll then choose one of 2 streams, scholar practitioner or practitioner scholar. They both contain both, but each one emphasizes it differently. In the scholar practitioner is really the thesis track. So you will do a research course that prepares you to do a thesis, and then do a thesis, which allows you to dive in to a topic of interest to you, an applied research, so it's really got meaning in the world, but something that you really are passionate about and want to do research on in order to make a difference. The practitioner scholar, on the other hand, can also contain some research, but it really emphasizes practice, and so there'll be some courses that provide you with that opportunity, and I'm just going to go to the next slide to show you what that looks like. So here's the scholar practitioner. You'll start with 601, which carries on through the year. You'll do the climate action research and then the research thesis. The thesis carries on for a year. Some students take longer. Again, depends on whether you're working full time, whether you have kids at home, you know, what life throws at you. But it's really an individualized learning experience where you get to choose the topic, you get to focus your energies on something that is of interest, and really lock in your passion and do a deep dive on something that's of interest and relevance to creating climate solutions, climate resilience, etc. Next slide. In the practitioner scholar, as I said, you'll also do the Leading Climate Action in Society. You'll also do the climate action research course, which can prepare you for a number of other things that we'll talk about in a second. And then you'll do a course called Practitioner Portfolio. This is really an opportunity to pull together a professional portfolio, which is increasingly becoming part of how we engage in the workforce, how we kind of sell ourselves in employment situations. It's a real demonstration of your competence rather than just being able to talk about it or show it in your resume. Part of the practitioner portfolio also is about shaping 9 credits of your degree. 9 credits is probably about, each course is 10 weeks long. So, you know, it's substantive, about 6 months time. And the 9 credits allows you, this portfolio piece allows you to, again, to do a deep dive in areas of interest and importance to you in your learning and your career. And that's really wide open. Obviously, it has to be relevant to climate change. One option in there is to do an internship, a 6-month internship. And the 6-month internship is an applied experiential practice in a business or organization. It will have a research component, but not a thesis. It's more of an organization, working with an organization that's interested in a question that they're grappling with. And it may be about how they integrate climate into their existing work, or what their climate policies should look like, or what solutions they might be wanting to play with. And these can be not-for-profits, businesses, governments, etc. So you'll do an internship. There's a prep course to that. And then you'll have 3 credits. That's a typo. You'll have 3 credits where you will be able to, again, customize your learning through experiential activities. That might be working with a mentor in a directed studies. It might be doing a project with a community. It might be doing multiple kinds of not-for-credit learning that will work towards that portfolio and work towards those credits. If you choose not to do an internship, that experiential learning piece broadens to 9 credits. And again, we have an elective called Translating Climate Risk and Resilience. And that's that builds from the first-year course and provides you with tools and options for how you do risk assessments and how you work with risk and resilience, which is an enormous part of what happens in communities, in organizations and governments. Understanding what the risks are, understanding how to assess those risks, and understanding how then to approach them with a resilience orientation. But within this portfolio, you can do other things. You can take other electives at Royal Roads. You can take other electives at other universities that are climate action relevant. You can craft non-credit learning. That can include webinars and MOOCs. It can include micro-credentials, and we'll talk about that in a second. It can include a wide range of learning opportunities that really are customized to your interests, your career goals, and your experience. You'll be supported in that, of course, by myself as program head and by the faculty member that's teaching the portfolio course, and then by other mentors along the way. So if we can just go to the next slide, please. I want to talk about this. This is an example of a micro-credential that could fit within that portfolio, but it's also an opportunity that would allow you to ladder into the program. Micro-credentials are just smaller credentials than degrees, or whether that's a diploma or a master's degree. So Royal Roads is offering Canada's first climate action practitioner micro-credential. It's supported by the Ministry of Advanced Ed here in British Columbia. And it's an 18-week asynchronous online and synchronous online experience. It includes 4 courses, and maybe if we can go to the next slide. You'll see, so it includes 3 core courses. The first one is focused on climate adaptation fundamentals. The second one is looking at how we engage as leaders in these transitions. And then the third one is really looking at the financial dimensions of climate action and climate change. Really, how do we support that? So those are the core courses. And then you have electives, and the electives can include things like natural asset management, or operating in the policy environment, or project management and climate change. So there's going to be a range of electives that you can choose. So this is an example of a micro-credential that can become part of your portfolio, so that in that case, you would graduate both with the climate action practitioner micro-credential and the master's degree. You could also, as I said, some students will use this to ladder into the program, where it will also again count as credit towards that portfolio. Next slide, please. This is just explaining what I just showed, but you'll have the recording of this webinar, so you can review those, and the link is there to the micro-credential. I didn't mention earlier that the MA in Climate Action Leadership is an open learning program, and as such, it means that all our courses are visible to you on WordPress sites. The first year courses are all visible right now. The second year courses will be going online over the next 6 months, so that you can see what it is you will be learning. You can see both the learning activities, the assessment activities, the assignments. You can see the student blogs, the students that are already enrolled. So this is really an ethos of the program, which is to say that not only are we transparent about what we're teaching and what students are learning, but students also have an opportunity as they go through the program to share that learning out, to share their ideas out, to share their design thinking challenges and solutions out, and not wait to engage in the real world climate action until you graduate. And we think that's important for pedagogical reasons, but we also think it's really critical in the context of this crisis, where we need to be acting now. We need to be taking what we're learning and applying it now. And that's really a core component of the program. The program is geared for social scientists writ large, whether that's, as I said, folks from any kind of discipline, science, not only social scientists, but social scientists in planning, in English, in business, etc. We also are seeing an increasing number of folks coming in with environmental degrees, science-based degrees, with that real combination where you will have a science foundation and with this degree, a social science foundation, which is really the sort of sweet spot in climate action, being able to understand the science and also understand the human dimensions of the problem and the solutions. So the courses that you're seeing here on the screen are from the micro-credential, but that's equally applicable to the micro-credential as it is to the program as a whole. So I encourage you to check out the micro-credential as one option. We've got an iteration of that starting in March, at the end of March, but it'll be happening over the course of, well, it'll just keep happening in September and thereafter. Next slide, please.
The next slide is how to apply, Robin.
Oh, okay.
We have two questions that actually I would like to ask you now.
Sure.
The first one is MACAL designed for working professionals within BC marketplace?
So is it designed for?
Is MACAL designed for working professionals within BC marketplace?
Yes, I mean, it's designed for working professionals across Canada, not just BC. Yes, BC, but it is not specific to BC. The courses and the focus of the program is designed, and I would say not even only for the domestic scenario in Canada, but globally. So a lot of what we focus on is relevant across Canada, relevant to a range of sectors. So currently we have students that come, as I said earlier, from retail, from planning, from municipal governments, from I think at least one from a federal government position, students that are coming from sociology and from just trying to think of our current cohort. Anyway, it's quite broad. So it is very transdisciplinary, and that is really the climate action space, which is climate action requires people working together. There's not going to be a solution that is only in one sector or one province. Now we localize that. So we'll say if I'm looking at developing a climate solution, I'm going to tailor it to my community or to the region I'm working in or to the business that I'm working in. But the fundamental underlying principles and practices are much broader and more transdisciplinary and more trans-border in that way. We have instructors and readings and practical kinds of examples, not only from Canada, but from North America generally, and to a lesser degree from Europe, although Europe has some really amazing work happening now that is actually leading the way. So yes, it is for working professionals, and it is working professionals broadly, not only BC. I hope that answers the question. I wasn't entirely sure whether it was you were wanting it to be BC specific or wanting to know whether it applied more broadly.
I will keep an eye on the chat box, just if there is maybe a follow-up question regarding the question, I will let you know. The next question is about, is it common for people, I know you talk about a bit of family, students that have families, but it's common for people to have like a full-time job, some families, people are just thinking about how adding the school in their life looks like.
Yeah, it's a great question. And the short answer is yes. Our students in this program, but in Royal Roads generally, are for the most part working, and most of them are working full time. Most of them have complex lives. You know, they have partners, they have children, they have elders that they may be caring for. So it's definitely geared that way, and it's definitely um, meant to be structured in ways that allow for that. It doesn't mean that that's easy. Obviously, anytime you're adding in studies to a full life, you have to schedule for that, and you have to sort of work out that balance between, you know, your life, your family, your work, and school. But it is very much geared that way. Most of the work in the courses is asynchronous, which means that although you're doing it within the same week, so we might have a unit that's focused on uh, a unit focused on leadership and theories and practices of leadership. You're going to be doing that unit at the same time as everyone else in your class. But within that week, when you do the work, is up to you. There will be some team meetings. You know, obviously you have to coordinate those, but a lot of the work is on your schedule. So if you are a morning person, you do it in the morning. If you are, you know, once the kids are to bed, you do it then. If you've got time at lunch, you do it then. So it's really flexible in that way. There are assignment deadlines that you have to meet, usually at the end of the week. So, you know, how you get there is up to you. And students, I've been teaching at Royal Roads for over 13 years, and I teach in the Disaster and Emergency Management program and also lead and teach in this one. And, you know, we have students in very complex, demanding jobs and who are completing the program. So it is very much geared to that kind of working professional. We also have some great student services that support students when they're struggling with that, or when they need some help thinking through how to manage that. We have great support services in the library and in IT, et cetera. So you're very, Royal Roads, I've taught at other universities, and Royal Roads is very student-centered and very geared to providing students with a supported, dynamic, positive learning experience as working professionals. It's partly a good part of why a lot of what we do is asynchronous or online, because people are working, and people are working here, and people are working in different time zones. So the program and the university are really geared to accommodate that.
Thank you, Robin. And I'm going to walk people now through the application piece. But if you have any other questions for Robin, please feel free to add them to the chat box. And actually, Robin, there is one more question that I'm going to ask you once we talk about the application components, that I think it will be a better area to cover.
Sure.
So now the most exciting piece. So whenever you're ready, we will be ready for you. So how to start your application? First, you need to complete an online application. And after that, you will need to submit the following documents. The first ones are your official transcripts from any education that you have completed. Let's say if you did a diploma or an undergrad degree, or maybe a diploma, grad certificate, we would like to see all of those transcripts. The next document is a detailed resume. That document is going to give us the first glance about who you are, your personal, professional career. So we want to know about your education, work experience. In your work experience, it's very important that you add a small description or bullet points about your responsibilities in each of those jobs, but also the time that you were in any of those jobs that you were completing. We also want to know about volunteer experience and any other activities that you think it would be important for us to know about yourself, including non-credit education. The next document is a personal statement or statement of intent. I'm a Royal Roads grad 7 years ago, but I will say that was my favorite document when I applied to university. There's specific questions that you want to answer, but basically, the reason why it's my favorite document is because about what is the motivation? Why do I want to apply to this program? What I'm hoping to learn? And what also you're going to bring into this program? And I believe, Lisa, if you can share the link where people can find all the specific details that they need to add to their statement. Robin, something for you to add? Sorry, I just realized you were unmute.
I was actually going to answer a question that Lindsay raised, but I don't want to interrupt your flow there.
Oh, no worries. And the last two documents are the letters of reference. They have to be, it can be academic or professional, but basically one of the recommendations I can give you is if you feel comfortable, please share your personal statement with the people that write those letters so they have a better understanding the why you're applying to this program, so they can expand a little bit about the experience they have working with you or if you were a student. And those are the documents that we are going to be looking for. So for standard admissions, so really when you're coming and you're applying, there's two ways for us to assess your application. One is standard admissions and one is flexible admissions. However, when you submit your application, there is no box that you need to click. The person that is looking at the application, they will decide if you're coming through either or. So standard admissions are for those students that have 4 years of undergraduate education. It can be in art, science, or any other degree related. And I know Robin already expanded a little bit what kind of undergrad degrees people are coming into the program. And we are looking for a GPA of B+ in the final 20 courses, or at least in the last 2 years. At the same time, we are looking for a minimum of 3 years of professional experience in a leadership or management position related to the program and learning outcomes. And this is where my question comes for you, Robin. So I had a person asking me, does leadership experience have to be part of a formal role? Or this can be more if you're a coordinator, but maybe you are a project manager of a program or of you're leading the policy or changing some process at the organization, will that count? So basically, what are we looking for that leadership experience?
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's a great question because I think it touches on a different understanding of leadership that I hold and that the program holds, which is it does not have to be formal. It can be informal, and it may be some of the things that you've just mentioned, Andrea. It's really in your personal statement. It's really important that you respond to the questions, obviously, but in so doing, make the links and sort of translate your resume. You know, you read a resume and it'll say coordinator of production design. Okay, I don't necessarily know what that means, but how you translate that in your personal statement to demonstrate that you have experience leading is up to you. So it is much broader than that, you know, either title, I was a manager, or I was a leadership. So really, part of it is really, we want people that are bringing in an understanding of their own leadership capacity to build on that, to grow that, to inform it with new ideas, etc. And to have some of that professional experience in that way. And professional experience, again, can be paid, but it may also be unpaid. We have, you know, lots of people who are coming to us that have taken leadership roles in volunteer positions. So it is broader than that sort of quite narrow understanding of what a leader or a manager is. You know, ideally you have some experience working with others who are working either, you know, under your direction, or, you know, and that you can demonstrate that, or that you've had some, it may be more collaborative than working under your direction, but where you're really demonstrating your capacity and experience in leading and working with others.
Thank you, Robin. And now I'm going to talk about flexible admissions. So normally, if you don't fit in what we just explained as a standard admission, you might be a flexible admissions applicant. How that looks like is for people that have some undergraduate education or equivalent of 7 years of work experience in a relevant field. This will include 2 years of that leadership or management positions that Robin was just talking about it. For our flexible admissions applicants, we will require to complete an academic writing and critical thinking. That program has to be completed before you start either the graduate diploma or the master program, and you will need to complete the program with a minimum of a B+. That would be the equivalent of 77%.
And I'm just going to jump in there, Andrea, if you go back to that slide. I just want to say a couple of things about flexible admission. Flexible admission is really about recognizing that not all our learning is formal learning. People can have a lot of experience and expertise without ever having had a degree. People also do mid-career transitions where their degree is like, 20 years old. So this is really about recognizing the value of those other kinds of learning experiences. And when it says that, this has to be directly related to the program learning outcomes, those are on the program page. And I think that link to the program page has been shared in the chat. These again are broad because climate action is broad. These may be competencies that are relevant to project management. There are competencies related to leadership and communication, to a range of areas. So take a look at those and think through what it is about your experience that links to them. You don't have to say I have competency A, B, and C, but it's really to sort of demonstrate an understanding of the breadth and the transdisciplinary nature of climate action. The other thing I want to say about this writing course, again, I've been teaching in the disaster management program for about 13 years, and we introduced this requirement at, I don't know, about 5 years into the program. And there was some pushback on that because it's on another course. It's not a credit course. But I will say, and I'm not just saying this, I will say that every student that has taken that course has said, thank goodness I took it, because really what it's about preparing you to do well in the program. And, for some, it might be a refresher. For some, it's brand new about how to frame, in a good way, an academic argument, how to support your academic thinking through citations, how to write in compelling ways. And for most of us, if you haven't done graduate school, or if you haven't recently done a degree, an undergraduate degree, and sometimes even with an undergraduate degree, depending on what that was in, we don't have a lot of experience in this kind of academic writing and thinking. And so this course is really designed not just as another hoop to jump through, but really to support your success in the program. We've had students that don't require it that have taken it, actually. So I think, it's just another way of understanding that course is not just another hoop, but as a real commitment to wanting to support you doing well in a graduate program, which has graduate writing and graduate thinking and critical thinking as expectations in the program. Thanks.
Thank you, Robin. And the next slide is about key dates. So we have our application deadline coming up soon. So it's February the 9th, and this program will start April the 4th. So if you're interested, I highly recommend and encourage you to start your application before February or in February the 9th, and then we will work with you. We make sure that you have all the documents submitted on time for us to be able to process them. So you can always start your application today and start adding the documents as you navigate the process. For the transcripts, I know many institutions are now giving the people the opportunity to send the transcripts directly to us. So I highly recommend to do that for you. Maybe if you're not sure how you did in the past and you're very curious, please request one for you and one that is sent directly to us. And I think we have that slide is repeated. And now I'm going to talk about financial aid. And so we have a great team of financial aid and awards specialists that will be able to provide additional resources for you regarding loans, awards, research scholarships, and other funding. Depending where you are in Canada and also the job that you are currently doing, you might have different options available for you. So we have on our website, we have a lot of resources, and there's a blog where you can find a lot of information. As well, they are open to have a conversation with you to help you how we can support you and navigate the financial aid services. And I know you already met Lisa, that has been helping us and sharing a lot of information with us in our chat box. But if you would like to connect with our enrollment services, I have listed here 2 emails. The first one, if you are a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, or you have a refugee status, you can connect with them. If you're an international applicant, we have a team that will be able to help you and support you, and that includes visas and other documents. And if you want to connect with us, we also have a WhatsApp. So I'm going to leave this slide here for a little bit longer so you can grab that QR and just send us a message. And this is kind of the last slide, but I saw a question from Lindsay that you already responded, Robin, but I think this is such a great question. So I'm going to ask you to share that information with people. So the question was, in the curriculum, what is the intersection with the curricular economy, if any?
Yeah, and my answer, the short answer was, I mentioned the business of climate adaptation course touches on a range of things, including circular economy. I think that the broader answer to that is a lot of the discussions and a lot of the assignments are really supporting students bringing in the things that they are passionate about and interested in, whether it's circular economy, whether it's nature-based solutions, nature-based approaches to greenhouse gas emissions reductions, etc. Those become topics of conversation and focuses of blogs, focuses of student blogs and the McCall blog, focus of assignments. So assignments are really shaped to focus in on specific questions for sure, say around a communication question, but how you focus that in on and what topic you focus it in on is often left up to students, because there are a range of ideas, and that way we're also learning from each other. There's real strong peer-to-peer learning, peer and faculty learning, and we're all learners in this space. Climate action and climate change is new, I mean, relatively speaking, and we're all learning from each other. So that's really the ethos of the program.
Thank you, Robin. And the last comment that I want to make is that it was a comment that Lisa added to the chat box. So I said you can start your application and you can start submitting documents as you recollect them. However, we will not be able to assess your application until all the documents are submitted. And normally it takes us around, depending on the time of the year, it could take us a few weeks to process your application. So I would encourage you to reach out to us if you have any questions. But thank you, Lisa, for the reminder. And I think that is all for today. So thank you, everyone. Robin, anything else that you would like to add? Sorry, I just put you back on the spot.
That's okay. Just thanks for joining us. Hope to see some of you applying, and